time has come, many years in the making.
You may look at this Firebird and think it's just a car. A piece of crap car at that. Well, I mean, you're right on both accounts, but to me, it means a little bit more than just that. It was bought brand new on May 19th, 1989, with a whopping 19 miles on it by my grandfather. For those keeping track at home, the following year, I was born. I loved this car as a kid. I remember driving around with my grandpa in the back seat thinking this was the coolest car ever. So let me tell you a little bit about my grandpa. Alvin Erickson, Al for short, was a man of few words. Unless you got a couple drinks in him, then man, buckle up for some stories. When I found out he fought in World War II, I wanted to know everything. He never really opened up and talked about his time in Japan, but for some reason, he talked to me. He never told a bad story either. He made the war out to be a fun and happy time. From the time he opened his own mini ice cream business to being friends with Red Skelton, which was a famous actor and comedian of the time. Even being appointed to guard the Prime Minister of Japan, Hideki Tojo's jail cell. Yeah, if you don't know who he was, the short version is, he was a real bad dude. I think the favorite story he told me is of him being knocked out by a falling coconut in the jungle.
That guy got hit in the head with a coconut!
Well, maybe it's tied for the time he found a large sack of money and bought a boat to fix up to cruise around with his squad mates. Sadly, he passed away, and my grandmother gave me a small box that had a couple of things in it. In that box was this photograph. This photograph is of a photo he took in 1945 while in Japan of the largest left standing building he could find after we, the US, dropped a nuclear bomb. Yeah, which he said he played poker in the basement of that rubble. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s when I realized that he inspired me. But more importantly, the reason I wanted to tell stories. You see, this was a man that witnessed firsthand the dark side of humanity, and yet he was able to find the good stories to tell. Where others saw death and destruction, my grandfather was selling ice cream, making the best of things.
That's from Grandpa Erickson. Uh-oh, another thing to drive Dad crazy.
By now, you're probably wondering, I thought I clicked on a video about a Firebird. So let's get back to that. I bought this car from my grandmother not too long after my grandfather passed away. I drove it around for a couple of years, but by this time it was starting to show its age. It was falling apart, and being a young kid, I didn't have the money to fix it up. So I parked it, and there it sat for years and years. But the time has finally come where I'm able to start restoring this thing. So I haven't looked inside this car in a long time, but before we go inside, let's do a walk around. Needs a car wash, that's for sure. It's pretty rough. But over here, there's nothing. It's perfectly clean. And I think that's because the sun hits this side more than the other side. I used to have it covered, but then I noticed some paint issues, and so I let it go. And I noticed there was like a old hornet's nest growing in the mirror there. Back when you had to have 2 keys to get in the car. One to open it, and then one to start it. This definitely won't start. But let's go inside. I haven't been in here in a long time. Oh, it opened. Oh, there it goes. Oh no. Steering wheel looks like it has some mold growing out of it. I'm gonna have to clean that off before we go anywhere. I hope that actually might be water damage. It might be leaking. Well, it might actually be leaking in that corner right there. I was gonna redo the interior anyway, but overall I expect this to be a lot worse. I put these, it smells in here actually. It smells pretty bad actually. I was gonna get in it, but I don't think I will. It's kind of gross. I'm gonna need new seats for sure. These are definitely not great. I had them covered with the sun reflectors right there and then back there to help the seats out from like cracking and destroying. It seemed to have worked, but I can't really get in there and fully assess the situation yet. And I have to hold this door open because there's no door spring to prop it, because I replaced the door pin right before I stopped driving this car, and I could not get the spring back in. I needed a special tool, and so I never did it. So that has to be fixed as well. I need to clean that steering wheel really, really bad. Oh my god, so gross. But overall, the interior isn't terrible. I don't think the T-top has leaked, which is surprising. Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited. I'm gonna redo the interior, but it probably will be one of the last things, because the first thing it needs is a paint job. But I need to see the VIN number
I'll explain that in a second. So yeah, this is gonna be a project. But I found the VIN number. It was buried underneath a lot of moss and dirt and pine needles and all that stuff. And the reason I needed that is because I'm gonna look into getting classic car insurance for it. I've heard there are like certain like mile restrictions, so you can't like drive it all year round, and it can't be used for work stuff. It's literally for a leisure, which is fine because it would just be driving around probably like half the year max, and it'll just be parked in this really messy garage. So I gotta get this garage cleaned out again for the 5th time. Long story. I need to have it towed over to my parents' house, that is where I'm gonna be working on it, because my dad's got a garage full of tools, tons of tools. I don't really have any tools to work on this properly. And I'm gonna lean on his expertise and knowledge because he knows cars very, very well. And I know enough. Might as well get my dad in on this too, since it is my grandpa's car. So we got 3 generations kind of standing around this car, which I think would be pretty cool. No, I'm actually the 2nd owner of this. I got this from my grandfather when he passed away.
Where's it going now?
It's going to my parents' house to get restored. I'm gonna be working on it. Finally got the money to do it.
So this is just episode 1 of this journey that I'm embarking on to restore this 1989 Pontiac Firebird. This journey is far from complete. If you're interested in the journey, consider subscribing.